I'll pull this up. And Madison, anytime you want me to change slides, just tell me and I will. Make sure I have it for the screen. All right.
All right, so I did my presentation on 16 candles. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And first, we're going to start with the plot. With the occasion all but overshadowed by her sister's upcoming wedding, angst-ridden Samantha faces her 16th birthday with typical adolescent dread. Samantha pines for studly older boy Jake, but worries about her chastity will be a turnoff for the popular senior. Meanwhile, Samantha must constantly rebuff the affections of nerdy Ted, the only boy in the school, unfortunately, who seems to take an interest in her. You can go to the next page. Okay, so the casting is what we're going to talk about first. Molly Ringwall played Samantha Baker, and she was also seen in The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink. Anthony Michael Hall played Farmer Ted, and he was also in The Breakfast Club and another movie named Weird Science. Then there's Michael Scoffling, is that how you say it, as Jake Ryan. And the bottom's kind of cut off a little bit. So I can't really see what he was. It was like a good question what it was called. Let me see.
Maybe lower your zoom up might help if it's above 100.
I don't know. Well, the movie was called Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. I just pulled it up over here on the side.
Here we go. I figured it out.
Okay. All right. And you can go to the next slide then.
I was going to say, I don't know if you guys, did any of you guys see the Halloween movie that came out last year?
Yeah.
Anthony Michael Hall here, he's the guy who's chasing Michael Myers the entire movie.
Oh, is he?
Bald guy. Yeah.
I never noticed that.
Yeah. It's hard. He looks so different.
Yeah.
Now.
He's been in a lot of stuff. Like I just picked like 2 movies, but he was in a ton of stuff. So was Molly Ringwald. Michael Scoffling, he wasn't in as much, but he's still in a good bit.
Did one of you guys in here do your paper on Breakfast Club and 16 Candles?
I did.
I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, yeah. You guys can speak in a minute, I suppose, to how these two work in that film, too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, skip the names.
Okay, so more casting for the movie. Haviland Morris played Caroline Mulford, and she was also in Home Alone 3 and Who's That Girl? Paul Dooley played Jim Baker, and he was in Breaking Away and Popeye. Justin Henry as Mike Baker, and he was in Kramer versus Kramer. And then there was, I have no clue how to say that. We're going to say Jed Wannabe as Long Duck Dong, and he played in Gung Ho and Mulan 2. Then Blanche Baker as Jenny Baker. She played in The Girl Next Door and Truth. And John Cusack as Bryce, and he was in Say Anything in 2012.
Is that John Cusack?
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't even notice that was him.
Yeah. All right, you can go to the next slide. And it was directed by John Hughes, and this was the first movie that John Hughes ever directed. You can go to the next slide. All right, and then John Hughes was an American filmmaker who began his career in the 70s as an author of humorous essays and stories for the National Lampoon magazine. He was born on February 18th, 1950 in Lansing, Michigan. He passed away on August 6, 2009 from a heart. University of Arizona, and he had many big hits during his career, but financially, Home Alone was his biggest success. Sorry, my dog just literally jumped over me. Okay, so more movies from John Hughes. We've got The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Weird Science, Uncle Buck, Carly Sue, and She's Having a Baby. And you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, just real quick. I always do a John Hughes movie in this class, just because he's so influential when it comes to 80s pop culture. But like pretty much all these movies are really.
Yeah, and he worked on a lot more than that. Those are just ones where he was the main director, but he like wrote a bunch and everything.
Yeah, in this class, I taught Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink before.
I like the movie She's Having a Baby and Curly Sue as well. Those are pretty good movies.
I don't think I've seen Carly Sue.
Curly Sue.
Curly Sue.
Yeah.
Whoops.
That's all right. It happens.
Okay, some of the themes in the movie were betrayal, coming of age, lust, family, friendship, popular versus unpopular, and classism. You can go to the next slide. Okay, sound effects. One of the techniques used in 16 Candles was sound effects. One example of sound effects being used in this movie was the sound of something breaking. Anytime something was broken in the movie, there was a very dramatic crashing sound. An example scene where this was used was when Ted shows up at his friend's house. Ted shows up at his friend's house with Caroline and knocks on the window. Inside, his friends get up and walk to the window but crash into something on their way over. Then there's a timestamp. I guess I must have underestimated how much I put on these slides. Okay. And another sound effect used was almost anytime Long Duck Dong popped up on screen, the sound of a gong hitting would play. An example was his first scene when he dropped down from the top bunk into Sam's face. Okay. Montage was another film technique John used in 16 Candles. He also used it in The Breakfast Club. Montage is used to develop your understanding on a certain theme or topic. It is when frames cut numerous times to different pictures to create a type of collage. They usually occur in the beginning scenes and they introduce the background to where the movie is, what age group it is aimed at, and a small insight to what the film is about. This montage in 16 Candles shows mostly shoes and couples in school. This tells us it targets teenagers and gives us a background of high school. The montage shows the viewers that the movie will entail love and fashion. Fun facts. Molly Ringwald and Michael Anthony Hall were 16 when the movie 16 Candles debuted. Molly Ringwald and Anthony Michael Hall initially did not like each other, so John Hughes took them to a record store, and they ended up bonding about their favorite music. National Lampoon's Vacation was based on the article Vacation 58, written by John Hughes and published in National Lampoon magazine. John Hughes was inspired by Molly Ringwald before he even met her. He called her his muse. Hughes wrote the role of Ted specifically for Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah, I think these two even were in a relationship for a long time.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, and more fun facts. John Hughes added a few Easter eggs in the film for fans to find. Sam grandparents' license plate read V58 for the story Vacation 58, written by John Hughes for National Lampoon magazine. Jake Ryan's Porsche had the plate number 21850 for John Hughes' birthday, February 18th, 1950. The birthday cake at the end was made of cardboard, and Molly Ringwald was interested in doing a sequel, 32 Candles, but nothing ever came of it. And some notable scenes were the scene where they forgot Sam's birthday. when Sam drops the "Have you done it?" note in class. Sam and Ted's first meeting on the bus. Sam and Ted talking in the shop car. Sam's father apologizing for forgetting her birthday. Ted telling Jake that Sam likes him. Jake showing up after the wedding and the birthday cake scene. And then my questions.
I did write everybody questions, by the way. I just figured I would give everybody a break from those discussion questions since it's the last week.
Thank you.
We've all had a good semester. Figured I'd cut you all some slack.
I did want to make a comment about one of the scenes in it. I noticed there's another pretty good actor. You know when they was getting ready to cut the blonde-headed girl's hair? In that scene where those girls was coming down the stairs laughing and her pearls broke, and then they went to go get her the scissors and stuff. The girl in that movie, I don't know if you noticed it, but that's the girl named Star off of The Lost Boys.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Did you realize that?
I do now that you said it. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I thought, when I was watching this, I said to myself, she looks familiar. I couldn't quite place it. So you placed it for me there, Alan.
Yeah, she was off The Lost Boys. She played a star.
That's another one of my favorites. I do that movie a lot in this class.
I love The Lost Boys. I loved that since I was a kid.
So we can kind of get to Madison's questions organically here, kind of like we do every class. So let's, as always, you know how we always get going. General impressions, right? You guys tell me, what did you think of this movie? Is it some of your guys' first time seeing it?
I've seen this movie like a million times. I love 16 Candles. I thought it was pretty good to teach teenagers how to be able to express themselves and to just go with it and not worry about how you look and all this and that, because in the beginning she was showing how she looked, and she was worried about if she could get the guy and if he'd like her back, and she overreacted just a little too much because he ended up liking her anyway.
This was my first time watching the full movie, but my mom really likes this movie, so I've watched bits and pieces of it like for a long time.
What do you think, Sonny?
What was it?
Or what?
It
Enjoy it.
was my first time watching the movie, and
Is my internet spazzing out?
Everything on your end looks fine to me.
This was, I've watched this movie before, but when I was about to rewatch it today, I got confused with Pretty in Pink. I was like, oh, I know this. I was like, where's Ducky? I was thinking about halfway through the movie. I was like, oh, that's Pretty in Pink. This is not that movie. But I like this movie. I think I like Pretty in Pink better though, or even Breakfast Club. But the girl with the neck brace, I don't know if you recognized her, but she's a blonde lady in the Addams Family. Like, this is, I think, one of the few movies that she's not completely insane. Like, plays an insane character. I can't think of the actress's name off the top of my head, but everything I've seen her in, like Shameless, Addams Family, that one Foster movie, it's Joan Cusack. My mom just told me. Like, I love her acting, but I was really surprised when my mom told me that was her. I didn't believe her, but it's a good movie.
Are you talking about the character who's with Long Duck Dong?
No, she's the one with the neck brace.
Oh,
Oh yeah, really? I didn't know that.
I've watched the movie before. I love a lot of John Hughes movies. I've always found them kind of pure, but like, kind of fun, and for all ages really. But I had a good time watching it again. It's one of my favorite coming of age movies.
So a lot of you guys have seen this before. A lot of you guys are familiar with John Hughes, which is good.
It was my first time watching the movie. I've heard of it a lot, and I've heard of like many different scenes and just seen like a few clips and everything, but it was my first time watching it. I really enjoyed it. It was just kind of like one of those, I guess, like fun movies, kind of like somebody just said like a coming of age movie. It was just kind of like one of those just fun movies that you can just like sit down and watch, and kind of like a feel good movie. But the Joan Cusack, she was also in. Let's see, there was another movie. Oh, when I watched the one to compare to Goodfellas, the My Blue Heaven, she was also in My Blue Heaven also.
I haven't gotten to read your paper yet, Stacy. What did you think of that movie?
I was trying to remember, which I didn't think about it, but Molly Ringwald last night when I was watching this movie, I was trying to think. I remembered watching a movie of hers when I was younger, and I had to look it up, and now I forget the name of it. But um, let's see, her and a guy right out of high school or right at the end of their high school year, before they can both go to college and stuff, she gets pregnant, and now I can't think of the name of that movie. But
I think
I'll have
she's
to.
having a baby.
Is that the name of it?
Yep.
Let me look here. I remember watching that one with Molly Ringwald because I always enjoyed watching her in movies. But
Yeah, I love her
I've
too.
seen like clips of this one, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
I know that she went away from Hollywood for a long time. She came back in some sort of, yeah, I think she's in that Riverdale show. I don't know if you guys watch that. I know she's in that. Yeah,
Oh, I just looked it up. The name of it's For Keeps. It's got let's see, Randall looks like Batinkoff in it with
Yeah,
her.
you're right.
For Keeps. Because I was trying to look it up last night, but I don't know. She's just kind of like one of those actresses. Like you can just, it's kind of like a feel good, just like a feel good coming of age movie.
Here in a minute, I'm going to have to head out early to help my mom take my sisters to their ball games.
What'd you say, Jade?
I'm going to have to head out early here in a little bit. I have to help my mom take my sisters to their ball games.
All right. We'll see you Thursday for our final movie then. Colleen, did you want to say something? I saw you in mute.
Yeah, I went to look it up after I thought it was she was having a baby, and I got to looking it up, and as soon as she said it was For Keeps, I was like, "Yep, that's it." I found it. I was like, "Oh man, how'd I get those two mixed up?"
Thank you, Madison. Thank you. I just bought it over the weekend, so I had to show it off.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, as far as Ringwall goes, right? She was a major actor in the 80s. All those Hughes comedy, like Madison says, Hughes called her his muse. Right? All those Hughes comedies she was prominent in. It's kind of funny. She normally plays this like she does in Pretty Pete too. She normally plays this like outcast, nerdy girl almost. Who can't ever get the jock guy, right? That's normally what she plays. Except in the Breakfast Club, she kind of plays the popular girl in school. And Breakfast Club.
So when I was like researching on John Hughes and The Breakfast Club and 16 Candles for my essay, I kind of found that the John Hughes like trifecta of high school movies that she's in, she kind of plays like a different character in each one. Like I read about this in my essay about how in Pretty in Pink she's like a poor girl, and then in 16 Candles she's like in a typical middle class family, and then in The Breakfast Club she's like the super popular girl, like rich. I just kind of thought it was weird how he had her play like she played like so many different characters in his movies. And I wondered if he did that like on purpose, or I don't know.
That's a good point. I would argue probably. You said social class was a major theme in 16 Candles, and it certainly is in The Breakfast Club. But you said Pretty Big as well. It's definitely a theme there too. So you definitely see how important that is. Yeah, I forgot about her being really poor in Pretty Pink, so that's why she wears those strange outfits that weren't part of the fashion trends of the day. Which one of you guys wrote about the two films? Two John Hughes. Alan, you said you did.
I did
Yeah,
too.
I done it on 16 Candles and what other one? Oh God, I can't remember.
Breakfast Club.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I done it on both of them. I thought it was interesting to compare with them. It was pretty awesome. I thought I can't remember everything I put on my paper about it, but because I try to get mine done ahead of time, like I do everything. I try to get everything done ahead of time, just like for my science class. I thought it was 75 question exam that we had to do. No, it ended up being 100 question, and I'm trying to hurry and get it done. He just posted it today. So yeah, I'm trying to get ahead of the game.
Madison, you said you wrote about both too.
Yeah, I did Breakfast Club and 16 Candles.
Anthony Michael Hall plays pretty much the same character in
He
both.
does. Yeah, they're both really similar. Ted and what's his name? Brian in The Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His little speech that he makes at the end of The Breakfast Club is always heartbreaking. I think.
It was sad. It was actually my first time watching 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club. I hadn't seen any of these movies we've watched in this class before, besides like Us and the Titanic. So everything else was new. It was crazy because everybody's seen like The Breakfast Club and 16 Candles and all that stuff, and I hadn't seen them.
You guys certainly can't say you haven't gotten a plenty of variety.
Yes, we did. And guess what? For my summer classes, so I can go to Lindsay Wilson. I'm in your theater class coming this summer.
All right, good.
Yeah. Because I have to get my other 9 hours in order to go to Lindsay Wilson because they require more hours than y'all do. So I got my hours for Southern, but now I have to get my hours for before I start Lindsay Wilson in the fall.
We'll probably take English 230 with me in the fall too, Allie, because all the Lindsay Wilson people have to take that.
All right, cool. You're going to hate putting up with me a lot. I'm too opinionated.
That's all right. Somebody, there's three of you who said you wrote about Breakfast Club in this. Who else?
I do.
What did you think, Chelsea?
I did it on Pretty in Pink, and I thought it was different too to like compare the two movies. But I think I liked Pretty in Pink more than 16 Candles. So I've never watched either of them before this class.
What made you like Pretty in Pink more?
I think I just like the plot more. Like how she was poor and with the rich boy and the drama between it. But I still like 16 Candles. The ending, especially.
She should have got with Ducky at the end of the.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, of course, we're referencing all these other movies we haven't watched here, but I actually read that it was Molly Ringwall, the original script for that movie, had her getting with Ducky, and Molly Ringwall said it wasn't realistic. So
Yeah, I seen that too, and that's why they had the girl at the prom, like eyeing Ducky before it ended.
Molly ruined the end of Pretty in Pink with her intervening.
I like everything about Molly Ringwald, but also I think she was in a series of a movie. I can't think of the name of, but my daughters love it and they got me into it with them. But I can't think of the movie, but it had where their twins switched at birth or something, and they had to get to know the other people and all this and that, and they was trying to take both the daughters. But I thought it was a pretty good movie too.
You're definitely Molly's super fan here. Guess I'm a super fan too, considering I teach one of these every semester. Matt, I haven't heard from you. What did you think of the movie?
The reason I hadn't said much because personally I wasn't that crazy for it. I didn't really like it. I liked the last 30 minutes or so. I enjoyed it pretty well, but first hour I just couldn't really get into it. I didn't really find it that enjoyable. Wasn't that funny to me, or it just didn't hit with me.
Well, here again is an interesting conversation on the subjectivity of comedy here, right? Because
I thought it was pretty funny almost all the way through it and stuff. I thought it was hilarious on a lot of levels of it.
yeah, of all the movies we're watching, this is probably the most straightforward comedy we're watching. Dr. Strangelove, as we said, is a satire. Fargo is a very dark, messed up comedy, as you guys will find out. This is probably the most lighthearted of the comedies we're watching.
I loved it. It was one of my favorite movies this whole class. Because I love anything with Molly Ringwald in it. I think that's how you say her name. But yeah, I was a huge fan of it and I loved it. I tried to get my son to watch it with me and he was like, totally, it's old and it's a chick movie. So he was like, no.
Tell him he's going to broaden his horizons.
I know. I tried arguing with him. I said, it's a teenage movie. You're becoming a teen now. It's perfect. And he's like, no, absolutely not. It's a chick flick.
Yeah, I mean, my mom told me that she loved the movie whenever I went and told her about it. She was disgusted with me too, and I told her I wasn't that crazy for it.
Yeah, I've never liked that label, chick flick. I've never really liked that label. I think it's a narrowing label, unless we're talking about The Notebook, which screw the movie The Notebook. I'll just say that men aren't allowed to like the movie The Notebook.
Yeah, The Notebook's the only quote unquote chick flick I think I can't get through. Yeah, my favorite romantic comedy is Crazy Stupid Love. So Ryan Gosling, I guess, yeah, but Notebook, no.
Yeah. 10 Things I Hate About You is another good one.
That one's my favorite too.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
Heath Ledger.
that's based on a Shakespeare play. I don't know if you guys knew that. Well, mine.
Are you gonna add that in theater class?
We do read 12/9 in theater class. Yeah.
50 First Dates is a good chick flick, I guess. You can chick whatever.
Was that an Adam Sandler movie?
Yeah, I love Adam Sandler.
Me too.
When I went to Hawaii last year, I went to the cafe, but it was totally not how it is in the movie. It's this little place, and it was on a Sunday, so it wasn't even open, but it was nothing like how it looked in the movie. I'm actually going back to Hawaii in June, and we're going to the part where they filmed Jurassic Park. And what's that other crap? What is that movie with the apes? I can't remember.
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes or something like that.
It might be that one, but I know it's where Jurassic Park. We already booked our tour for that, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Our biology final, biology 2, is to categorize in different, in taxonomy and ecology and plants and anatomy, figure out how the movie relates to all that. And I'm like, oh my God.
What, Jurassic Park?
Yeah, the original one, not the new ones that just came out. I'm talking about the one with, I think his name is Jeff Goldblum or whatever his name is.
That's a movie I've done in this class before as well.
I haven't watched it in forever, but I guess I gotta watch it to figure out do this exam or this final paper on in biology.
That's interesting. It's an interesting assignment to give. I appreciate it.
Is that Miss Pratt's class? Miss Pratt's biology class?
Yes.
I'm in her lineage class, and she told us about how she was making you guys do that.
I have the same, I'm in the same class with Jules and Jaden. We have to watch Jurassic Park, and then we have to, the very first Jurassic Park, and then we have to go through everything that we've discussed and somehow relate it or describe how it could work or how it could not work and everything in biology, taxonomy, and go all the way back and start with everything and through plants and DNA and all kinds of stuff.
You guys are readers. You like Jurassic Park, read the novel by Michael Crichton sometime. It's a really good novel. It's a fun movie, but it's an even better novel, I think. Just kind of steer back towards the movie here. I'm going to look at Madison's discussion questions. I like this question that Madison asked. This is a movie based in the 80s, right? So things have changed a lot. Some of you guys are probably not far out of high school. Maybe you could, of course, some of us in here were in high school a while back. But I like your question. Do you think 16 Candles portrays an accurate and realistic high school experience? What do you guys think of her discussion question? Does it portray an accurate and realistic high school experience?
I guess. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think it kind of does, kind of doesn't. I think it depends on where you're from. So maybe somebody from a bigger area might, or a suburb might say different, but where I'm from is a little smaller, so everybody kind of knows each other. Nobody really ever says anything to each other other than their friends. Especially now, there's not as much bullying or anything like that going on, so it kind of does and kind of doesn't.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there. I always went to a pretty small school, so like it's kind of 50-50 on how well it relates to me as well.
What school did you guys go to?
I went to Chapmanville.
I actually went to Jamie Darren Christian Academy in Justice. It's a very, very small school.
I didn't know there was a school in Justice.
Yeah, it's a private school. I only ever got to go there because my grandma worked there as a janitor, and if you work there, you could have like a kid get free tuition there. So I'd always went there growing up.
Was you going to say something there a second ago, Allie?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, when I went to school, it would have been something like that, but nowadays, not so much. So I'm kind of like agreeing with the boys, 50-50 on that.
But
I don't really feel like I got a high school experience.
Who just said that? Is that you, Topanga?
Kinda. Yeah. I feel like I took high school away.
Well, because of COVID.
Yeah, I didn't really go like the last 2 years of high school. I don't even know who I really grew with.
Yeah, that's something that your age group definitely dealt with, especially this final couple of years. Like it or not, COVID has changed schools forever as far as that goes. It's definitely changed how I do business. It's pretty much all of my classes are on this now instead of in person.
I graduated 2018, so like I graduated before all the COVID stuff happened. So I mean, that's a good thing, I guess. Not. I mean, you know, because it changed schools. You know what I mean? It was like we had to wear masks, and the 2020 kids had to have a graduation at the football field at Man High School. Well, you know, because one of my friends was there graduating, and they had it in the we usually had it in the gymnasium, but they had it in the football field.
Yeah, as far as I think one of you guys mentioned this a second ago with this question. I forget which one. I think it might have been Brennan. Like if this was in a different area, it was either Brennan or Matt who said this. If we were in a different area, depending on where you live, the movie might feel more relatable. This is definitely this suburban, well-to-do, sort of middle-class background.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brandon.
Yeah, that's really what it reminded me of, because I was like, when I was watching it again, I recognized that, like, yeah, there's parties and stuff like that, and it just seemed like, you know, in a smaller town, there's, you know, at your party, maybe there's 20 kids that you are friends with and that you invite, and here they have the big blow up with all this, because there's obviously more kids in the area and stuff. So I feel like it'd be something that maybe we see as completely like, oh, okay, that's kind of odd, and somebody from maybe, you know, New Jersey or Indiana might think it's normal.
That definitely goes back to the social class points that Madison made, which is definitely a part of this movie's DNA. Life is different in those places compared to here, right? Versus even if you like in a big city school, right? That's a lot different than living in the suburbs.
Yeah, it's well, it cracks me up working at the hospital at in Charleston, just how different people are, even in like Kanawha County, than they are in Logan and so it's funny because like they make fun of my accent and everything because maybe they're from a little bit further up north, so it's just a little different, and you get to see different kinds of people, even in our state, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's certainly different when you get to one of the big cities, for sure. Just thinking about the question of how it pertained to me, I graduated in 2006. And I don't know, I can kind of see a little bit of this movie from my experience. I guess I could probably say. I know when it comes to social class, I went to Wyoming East. And, this was definitely something that was part of, felt like the culture at the school there at the time. Depending on who it was, whoever it was who had a kid, right? Like it was like the doctor's kid, right? They of course got special treatment in school and stuff like that. So you definitely can kind of tell the social class element in that in schools around here, at least from my experience, which was I guess 15, 16 years ago now when I graduated, which is kind of scary to think about. But yeah, my school was always very like certain people got certain privileges that other people didn't.
Yeah, that's I graduated in 2012, so my experience was kind of the same. It might not have been a doctor's kid or something. Oh, sorry, my baby's like she's mad. But it would be like the football players because I went to Belfry and everybody knows they're like,
Oh, yeah.
all about football. So they would get away with everything a lot there. So that can where I went, yeah, I seen it.
Yeah, it was like that for us too. It's dependent on who you know, and like I was really good friends with the principal's daughter, so I kind of got off a little bit easier sometimes, I think, than most would.
Yeah, it's probably like that a little bit of everywhere, but there's definitely a lot of that here. Yeah, because my wife's told me about that. She grew up in Belfry, so she's told me all about how that works there. Let's see. Taking a look at Madison's questions again. I like her first question. Do you think that Sam overreacted when her entire family forgot her birthday? That's a fun question too, because the movie definitely has weddings as a theme as well. And
I think she was mature for it. I would have overreacted if it was me being 16 because that's supposed to be a big deal, but she took it pretty well and kind of just let things go and let it fall the way it should fall. And not me, I wouldn't have done that.
you'd have burnt the family down.
I would have actually told him, hey, it's my birthday. Come on now.
I agree. I don't think she ever reacted at all. I felt that it was a very appropriate reaction. Most 16-year-olds would have done a lot more, through more of a fit if someone forgot their birthday. So even with her sister's wedding, so I agree with that.
My birthday is December 21st. So every year, I don't think that she overreacted. Nobody ever forgot my birthday that I remember of, but my birthday was usually we were trying to finish up like last minute Christmas shopping. Like usually I'd get to pick what restaurant we ate at when we were doing last minute Christmas shopping or something. So when everybody was out of school or it was cold weather. So I don't ever remember getting really to have any big parties because it was either snowing or cold weather, bad weather. Everybody was too busy, people going out of town, families coming in. So I don't think she made a big deal. I always try to make a big deal out of like my family's birthdays now, just because not that my family didn't make a big deal about mine, it was just something that was just Christmas was here, so we couldn't really put that much emphasis on a birthday. So I always try to make a big deal about birthdays now.
Yeah, it reminds me of my mom, Stacy. Her birthday's December 29th. She always has always gotten the short end of the stick when it comes to getting gifts and things like that.
Yeah, it's usually my sister's birthday's in June, so she would always get like, pool parties and sleepovers and things like that and separate gifts from Christmas. And then for my birthday, I don't know how many times I was little. Somebody like an aunt or somebody, would get us gifts and it would be like, and now Stacy, that one's for your birthday and for Christmas. And I'd be like, what? But, so yeah, I always try to make a big deal about birthdays. So I don't think she overreacted just because, your birthday is, you do want to feel special, even if somebody just says, happy birthday to you, even if they just mention it or just acknowledge it. I mean, that's, they don't have to get you a gift or do anything really elaborate, but just the thought of just saying, like, oh, hey, happy birthday.
Allie just commented that she's a December kid as well. So.
I was also commenting that everybody makes me feel old because I graduated in 1995. And where my kids is all growing up now. Well, when I'm still in school, but she'll be graduating in about 2 years. But y'all made me feel pretty old. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm even older than my instructor. I'm like, oh wow. So I was thinking, wow, that's crazy. I mean, sorry, I did have a chance to go to college as soon as I graduated, but I backed out because I fell in love. So kind of I relate to 16 Candles a little bit. So yeah, I married my high school sweetheart. We was together 15 years before he passed away on me. So yeah, I related to 16 Candles a little bit, but nowadays that don't happen.
I don't know. Sometimes you hear the high school loves working out. Sometimes you hear that.
My brother's been with his wife since they were in 8th grade. And yeah, that's like about almost 15 years ago too. So
You're young at heart, Alan. That's all that matters. You're young.
Oh yes, I am. I'm telling you, I am young at heart, man, and I fit in with almost all them teens just about because my kids as friends love me to death, and I claim them as my own kids now.
I was. I don't think I ever acted young. When I was in high school, it's pretty much like I am now. I'm probably more loose now than I used to be. Let's see. This question's a good one too from Madison. This is we were kind of talking about this pretty pink earlier with the Ducky character. It's the same question. Would you prefer for Sam to end up with Ted, the nerd kid, right, rather than Jake? Um, What do you think of that question? Did she end up with her right match here, right? Or should she have ended up, would a movie have been better with Ted?
I don't think that Jake seemed like, compared to I guess kind of like this kind of stereotypical kind of movie, like I don't think Jake seemed to be, I guess, as maybe stuck up or jockey. Like he seemed like he had like maybe a softer side, or even when he was breaking up, I forget what his girlfriend's name was, but even when he was like, kind of like calling it off with her, he was just uninterested in her because of, it was like she had that kind of attitude about her, like she was popular and wanted to be better and wanted things to look this way and to be and it kind of seemed like he was not, I guess, as much that way. So I don't necessarily feel that she made the wrong choice by not being with Ted, just because he wasn't he didn't really fit that stereotype that you mostly see in that kind of character to me.
Yeah, that's Jake character seems something's a little off with that character to me. Like the way that he lets Jake sort of like take his car and like ride off with his very drunk girlfriend, right? Something seems a little strange about that to me.
I thought it was actually funny about that part because I was like, God, he's really going to dump her. Wonder how long they'd been together because it don't say it in the movie. So you're like, huh? Why is he dumping her so quickly?
I remember I watched this movie with one of my ex-girlfriends in high school, and when that scene popped up and he left his very drunk girlfriend with the one dude, she looked at me and she said, that's kind of creepy." And I was like, "It's an '80s movie. Just it can be creepy a little bit." But I remember that's the first thing she told me, and like I never realized it, but then I said, it is kind of creepy.
A little bit, a little bit. Because she's very vulnerable there, right? So definitely a little odd.
I don't think she was all that much of a good fit for Jake because she liked to party and stuff, and he didn't seem like the type that really cared too much about it. He just done it because he was rich.
What do y'all think about when she gets with Ted at the end? Do y'all find that to be funny?
That's always blowed my mind every time I'd watch that movie. I'm like, really?
All I know is that if I was drunk and I was at my boyfriend's house and he let some random guy I don't know drive off with me, I would be furious.
She took it in stride, it seemed like, right?
Yeah, she didn't mind, I guess.
And Ted showed her a good time. So what did we what do you guys think of the Japanese character in the movie? Um, like
I thought he was the funniest in the world. I'm telling you, I laughed at everything he done just about, especially the way he talked and how he acted, and he was not ashamed of nothing.
Um, I think that he's really funny, and the character is like so eccentric and hilarious, and it is definitely kind of in today's world a little bit of like an issue. But I definitely, watching the movie, knowing where it's from, and I can always put that aside because I know it's from the early '80s, and I'm like, it's just comedy, and they were just trying to be funny, and they were doing really what they thought was, hilarious at the time, and it still is kind of funny. I was watching a Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry the other day, and I saw the same thing with Rob Schneider, and I was just like, oh my God, that's Rob Schneider. And I just realized that, and I think it's more like satire more than it is anything, and they're just trying to be funny.
When I was researching for my presentation, I saw that the actor who plays Long Duck Dong or whatever his name is, that he got like a lot of pushback and stuff for that role and the way he portrayed it and stuff. He got like a lot of hate.
A lot of fellow Japanese probably didn't appreciate the depiction.
Yeah, that he portrayed it in like a racist way, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a.
I have to go. My son just had an anesthesia and he just woke up and stuff like that, and he's like going crazy wanting to go eat and stuff. So I'm going to be leaving class early if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Jess.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation, right? I think it's amusing myself, but this is definitely something that's, again, the subjectivity of comedy in certain periods, right? You definitely couldn't get away with doing this today. That would get called out right away.
Yeah, well, it's kind of crazy to think too, because it was only now 14 years ago. Robert Downey Jr., if it wasn't for Heath Ledger, probably would have won an Oscar for playing a black character. Well, he played an Australian character playing a black character, but yeah, and I was thinking about that the other day, is how much things have changed in comedy in the last 10 or so years, and it's kind of crazy, but there's still really funny movies and stuff, and you just have to be a little bit different, a little bit think outside the box a little bit more.
I thought the piece of trivia at Massengate about the gong got going off as far as the soundtrack. I thought that was interesting. That's something I didn't really notice when I was watching. After I read that on their PowerPoint, I was like, oh yeah, that was definitely an effect. Now you guys wonder why there's probably never remade any of these movies, right? It would definitely be hard to modernize these.
I was thinking that I wish there was more to those movies and sequels and stuff.
Yeah, I would have liked to see the 32 Candles movie that she said was canceled. That would have been interesting.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, Molly Ringwald like read the script for it and everything, but nothing ever came of it.
At that point, John Hughes had probably already made his money with Home Alone. Probably lasts for a lifetime. So good. Let's want to end class today, guys, by asking you about the final paper. I did make the video, give you the prompts. You guys have gotten to see that yet, but I did want to ask any of you guys, if any of you guys had any questions that I can answer here about the final paper coming up.
So we're taking a scene from a film we've seen in this class, right? And we're dissecting the scene, what makes the scene integral to the story.
Right. Pretty much exactly there, Brennan. Right. Not just integral to the story, but also the composition of the film entirely, right? So like, how is that scene important to understanding how the directing works in the movie? How is that scene integral to the score of the movie? So not just the plot, but also all those other things too. think about it like a film is a composition, right? So without that scene, how would the overall composition of the movie be different? So you're definitely going to be practicing a lot of the skills that you've learned in here, right? All the different film terms. You're going to be kind of dissecting the scene to see how the scene's put together. Then you're going to look at the movie as a whole and discuss like how that scene is an essential puzzle piece of the movie as a whole.
I do have a question for you about my presentation. Did you say you like to go over everything with them before they actually give it, or what?
I've seen your presentation, Aline. You're good to go. You're ready.
Mine's very informational. I think I got too much information.
That's all right. That's all right. You're ready to go. You're going to do just fine.
Well, almost all the actors had something in it, you know, to where there was a lot they were in, you know, and they were pretty popular actors, I thought. And I was like, wow, there's a lot to talk about.
Frances McDormand is one of the greatest actresses of all time. So I love Fargo.
Yeah. I expect you to give your whole presentation in a North Dakota accent, Aline. I expect you to.
Oh God, I can't do it, but I do love that Frances, the one that her voice, it kills me. It makes me laugh so hard. I said, oh man, I love her accent. That's what really got me into it, is when she first started talking. I was like, oh my God, I love this. This is so cool. Because she had to, from what I read about her, she had to sit and practice a lot that accent before she got it down pat. And I thought she nailed it while she was in the movie. I was like, she done a pretty good job with that accent.
What I love about the movie accents are so, you know, like just niceness, and she's a cop and she's basically trying to catch these murderers, and I just couldn't take her seriously with her accent, so it's just kind of funny.
I've actually never watched the movie before. Does anybody know what it streams on?
Is it on a streaming service? You might know, Aline.
It says it's on Prime, Amazon Prime, with a subscription.
I actually found it on actual TV shows. I'm trying to find what was on.
Yeah, you can find it a lot on stuff. You can look it up, play on TV a lot.
Hold on.
We haven't had the best luck this semester with the streaming services. Yeah, I just looked. If you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it on there.
I'm doing mine on the scene where like Nurse Ratchet gets like choked, because I think that's a cool. Is that an okay?
Yeah, I forgot to respond to your emails.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's if you do that scene, that's the climax of the movie, right? So if you do that scene, don't think about it just in terms of what's happening with the plot. Maybe just make sure you tie it in with bigger themes that's happening in the movie, because that is a very important part of the movie, but that's the movie's climax, right? So you kind of want to maybe focus on the understated parts of the scene, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to write the paper saying, oh, well, without that scene, the movie would be different, because of course it would be, right? Because that's probably the biggest part of the movie, right?
So do you suggest I do another part, or?
If you're going to do Cuckoo Nest, I would probably say do a scene that might be a little more subtle, if that makes sense. You don't want to, yeah, that's the big moment in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of times the best papers come from the scenes that maybe aren't like the end of the movie. Or
So I mean, I could do the one that where like McMurphy gives the chief a cigarette and he's like, or gum or something, and he's like, "Oh, thank you," or something like that.
yeah, there's so many good moments in that movie that you could do a paper on probably.
Okay.
Any of those scenes where they're having therapy would probably make a good scene.
I was meaning to tell you that when I recorded Fargo, when it was on Turner Classic Movies, it was on February 26th is when I found it on regular TVs and stuff. So that's how I found it. And I just pushed record off of my TiVo box. And that's how I ended up getting it. So I'm sorry. I thought I tried to tell everybody that around February, but I don't know if anybody paid attention to me saying that it can be recorded.
Yeah, it's on Prime, so everybody can watch it on there if you have an Amazon account. Yeah, that's my best advice about the paper, guys. Maybe don't focus on moments that are obviously important to the movie. But maybe think about maybe one of the smaller, more subtle moments in these movies. Those oftentimes make for the best papers. I'm going to write down so I remember. I gave you guys directions, but I didn't give you examples. I'm gonna actually write down a note to myself so that I'll remember to do that. Yeah, film paper.
I done my paper so fast, I'm not even sure if I'd done it right. I did try to pay attention a little bit to the directions of what you said, but I'm hoping I done okay, but I don't know if I done it completely right like I was supposed to.
You already do it?
Yeah, I had that done for almost a little over a week now. Sorry. I rushed through it though, so I'm sorry if I done it wrong.
Yeah, I think I posted the directions last Thursday. So you do it over the weekend?
Just as soon as I knew you posted about it a little bit, I read some things and stuff. So I just went and dove right into it and started doing mine.
Shoot it to me in an email, Aline, and I'll take a look and tell you.
I thought I had already put it on Bright Space. I'm pretty sure of it.
Send it to me in an email just in case you did it wrong, and I'll take a look and give you some advice.
All right, thank you.
Is it due Monday?
Let me double check my prompts. I have so many classes, different classes, it's hard to keep my head on straight. Let's see. I think that's when I asked for it.
It is the 9th.
The 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah, try your best to get it in by then. So I'm having to space my grading out next week. So that'll probably be the very first thing I grade. So try to get that in. Monday.
Do we have, I don't mean to interrupt, but do we have class next week?
No, we're done after Thursday.
Okay.
When do you think you'll have the second paper graded?
I'm going to get to them sometime this week. Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to get them back to you this week.
Okay.
I'm drowning in papers right now. They're on the table for this week. Yeah, I'll definitely get those back to you before you submit your final ones. Yeah, guys, anytime in the next couple of days, maybe if you want to shoot me an email and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this scene or something, like I was just talking with Jules, feel free. I'll try to get back to you. if for some reason I forget to get back to you, remind me, because again, I'm very scatterbrained at the moment. Also, this week I'm providing extra office hours. I don't, did I tell you guys that on Brightspace?
Yeah.
Yeah. So come by for those sometime this week too, if you need any help with your final paper or anything like that, and I can definitely assist you there too. So yeah, stop by for that if you need it. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Thursday for Cinco de Mayo. Instead of watching a movie about Mexican independence, we will instead be watching a movie about frigid North Dakota. So I couldn't have picked a movie that had less to do with the holiday. Cinco de Mayo is a fun day. I spent it in California a couple of years ago. That was a fun one. So anyway, guys, take care. We'll see you guys on Thursday.